people. So, all right, welcome back to another episode of the Is What It Is podcast. I'm your host, Cody Kelly. Connect with me on all platforms, whether it's Instagram, YouTube, and CB Space K. I think I have one of my banners, but I'm so excited about this episode today. This episode is Marriage. This is not a Disney movie. I have some amazing guests. I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. Starting with Peter, then Pastor Williams, and Ian, then Jorge and Alexia, then Natalie. If you guys can introduce yourself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm Peter. My name is Peter Anderson. I work here in Massachusetts, right outside Boston. I own a clinic, family clinic. It's called Anderson Family Therapy. I've been a family therapist for 12 years. If you ask my wife how good I am at it, she might disagree about how good I am. I'm kidding now, but I'm so try to practice what I preach with her. But I love it. In fact, I just got done with the client right before I got on the show, and I've really started investing in relationships and marriages, mainly because I needed some help on my own. When I first got married, when I was in grad school, doing the best I could, but wasn't doing a good job at it. Went to marriage counseling, and I was like, wow, I really love this, and fell in love with it and decided to try to help other people. Yeah. So.
Thanks for being here. Pastor,
sure.
I'm Pastor Naaman Williams, and I'm a pastor, I'm a musician, I'm a father, I'm a friend, and I'm a great basketball player. And my wife and I, we got married on January the 22nd, 2006, when Kobe Bryant scored 81 points.
Wow.
And that is what he says every time. Happy anniversary first, that Kobe scored his highest, then happy anniversary to me. Okay. So, my name is Davita Williams. I am a first lady of the greatest church in the world. And I am a teacher for the Chicago public school system. This is my 17th year teaching. I've entered into my 17th year, and I'm loving what I'm doing spiritually and naturally with the children. And I'm glad to be a part of this podcast today.
Awesome. Me and Natalie, you can introduce yourselves.
You want to go first, Natalie?
Well, we're together, aren't we?
Yeah. My name is Ian Beeson. I was born in Jamaica. I'm an engineer by day, and I'm going through seminary right now to try to become a chaplaincy. And I'm in my last semester and a half here of seminary. And after that, I will be hopefully ordained within a year and a half, and I'll begin my chaplaincy work, hopefully in the hospital setting to begin with, and then maybe end up in a fire department / police department somewhere. So that's the plan for the future.
Well, that's his future. Mine is we've been married for 17 years. My name is Natalie, the other half of Ian, and we host the podcast called the Family Mess Podcast. We have two boys, 10, or actually one just turned 11 last week, and 14. So we're just trying to survive that. That's the main thing for me.
Awesome.
Nice.
And last but not least, my guest, Jorge and Alexia. First of all, thank you. You guys have been just amazing, just communication. But if you guys can introduce yourself and what you do.
All right. My name is Alexa, and this is my wonderful husband, perfect husband, Jorge. We have a podcast, The Kiddos Are Sleeping, and we've been married for a little bit over 5 years and together almost 8 years.
Yeah.
We are parents to two little ones, a 5-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son, and he's a firecracker, so he keeps us on our toes.
Yeah. Yeah, I work for a food service company. I drive for them, and Alex stays at home and deals with
I hold it down at home.
Yes.
Awesome.
So
I'm excited to have all of you. Just a little bit about myself. I'm actually a HR technology sales person. By day, I never give credit to them on my podcast because, this is my own thing. They don't take me to do that. But, I'm excited to host this. It's what it is. Mondays, 6:30 p.m. to the same time to go live. I have with me my beautiful wife, April. This is the first time on the podcast. She usually doesn't join me because, she's camera shy, but I'm super excited today. about having her. She can attest that I am not the world's greatest husband, but I believe I'm the world's most improved husband. So we're gonna go there. I'm gonna start out here, and I'm gonna go here, then Maxwell, then Jorge and Alexia, and Natalie. Is attraction a real? And obviously we know it's a real thing, but is it something that we should do when it comes to finding a spouse, finding a partner? I was just thinking back. We celebrated our 6-year wedding anniversary this year, and I was looking back kind of how we got to this point. And the first thing, I'm gonna be honest with you, it was a very base thing. I just thought my wife looked good. I didn't. She was my wife at the time. I introduced myself because I thought she looked good. There was no divine connection. There was no, manna from heaven. There was nothing. There was not a voice that came out of the clouds and told me that this was it. It was literally, I thought she looked good. I pursued, and it kept maturing and developing. And now we're here 6 years later. So, Peter, is attraction something that people should start with, or is that inherently dangerous?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I mean, I think it's always okay to question a part of you that may be attracted to the wrong thing. I think that's always a part. I mean, I think when we look at our own blind spots, so I have a lot of clients who are in very unhealthy relationships, for example, and wish that they could have gotten out. So I think it's okay to question, is there a part of me that may be attracted to something that's not maybe good for me? I think we all have that capability. I have a lot of clients where there's been affairs, for example. I think the appeal of an affair is usually, that person was kind of like the bad person that I always wanted to date at high school, especially, after kids come and everything else. But at the same time, I think you also don't want to marry somebody that you're not quite excited to go to bed with. So if I could be kind of blunt with you, I also have a lot of couples where there's a whole lot of sex problems, where there's really not an attraction. And I don't think that's really good either. So yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that it grows over the years. I'm proud to say that I'm much more attracted to my wife now, even after 3 children and, all the craziness that we've been through, than I probably ever have been. I hope that grows, but I think it's different type than when we were first dating. I guess it's striving for a different type of curiosity that I didn't necessarily have in the very beginning. And I think that's the harder part of increasing that attraction, but also the more it's deeper. I would definitely still say I'm still attracted to my wife, but it's this deep seated kind of intimacy of really getting to know her and being known by her that, honestly, when somebody else were to come along, just doesn't really appeal to me. And I think it's like, wow, she really knows me. Yeah. So definitely important.
So we're talking about the evolution of attraction. I will say I'm more attracted to her now just based off the things we've gone through, health challenges and everything. There's a deeper love there. But I have to start here because, and Pastor Davis can attest, I grew up in a church that, and I love it to death. I'm not bashing it. I think it's just healthy conversation. That kind of frowned upon physical attraction, right? Like it had to be something so divine, right? Something like prophetic to the point that I felt like it was unreal. I just, I couldn't find any biblical examples of somebody who was like, God said, this is your wife. Well, I mean, other than Adam, but like, I just couldn't, I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And I felt like it wasn't working for me, because what if I could pray with you, but if I didn't find you attractive, I wasn't going to ask you on a date, right? So Pastor, you and your wife, you guys pastor a church. You guys are amazing stewards in the Chicagoland community. You're counseling young people, and let's say there's people that in your church that want to get married or whatnot, and they bring up this thing of attraction, or they say, should I wait on God? Should I allow the Holy Spirit to direct me into this journey? What would you give them for advice?
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think that attraction is very relevant and important. I'll tell you a story. In fact, first of all, Naaman and I didn't like each other at first. We couldn't stand each other. And so when I found out that he was human, He was actually playing the organ from my dad's church. And he really helped me with the event. And he was on the organ and he said, okay, are you done with me? I said, well, I'm done with you playing for this event, but I'm not done with you. You know, so I don't, you know, and that was in church, Cody. He was on the organ. The person was up singing, and I was standing next to the organ. He was ready to go. He asked me.
The devil.
He was ready to go.
The devil was in the church.
I just needed him to know that I had interest in him aside from playing the organ. So I really do think that being attracted to someone, to your mate, is something that's important, because that's really what really appeals to you at first glance.
Right.
You're not really going to stop and talk to someone that you're not physically attracted to, even if it's just how they look. He still is an awesome dresser, you know. So yeah, okay. So I think that is very important. I do. And if the church says something different, you know, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Hey, how come you guys didn't tell me I didn't have? I forgot my podcast mic. I actually had it on the floor. Somebody sent me a message like, "You're far away." I had to bring up my podcast mic. This is so wild. All right, Alexa, I want to go with you. First of all, can you guys hear me? Am I good?
Yeah,
My audio
much better.
Yeah,
much better.
Right.
Now you're too
Talk about
close.
that.
I'm kidding.
Talk about that attraction. You guys host a podcast show. The kiddos are sleeping. Talk about that. You talk about the kids that you have. Obviously, there was an evolution, right, to this point. Talk to us about that process.
Oh yeah, the way I see it is, when you go to a restaurant, you know, you look at the menu, and I love the ones that have the menus of food on them. You know, they have the picture of the food. I'm like, man, that looks good right there. You know, you don't got to ask the waiter, hey, what does it have? No, you see everything. That's how I see it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I like what I see. Let me get that.
And I feel like attraction is important, and like you know, y'all were saying, is I think that's what starts the spark. You know, if you see them attractive, that's what's gonna make you want to go towards them and want to find out more. And once you get to know them, then they turn out fine. You know, like they become more, you know, attracted to you, and yeah. So I feel like it's important.
It's important.
Yeah, I did my my dancing skills when I first met her, so that's how I sealed the deal. I met her, I was like, let me show you how I dance.
Awesome. Ian, Natalie, you guys have any dancing stories? How did that process come about?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, God.
Ian hates talking about how we got together. I didn't like Ian at all. We were just friends. I knew him from high school. I mean, I liked him as a person. He was a very nice guy, but I had no attraction to him whatsoever. And yeah, I mean, he knows it is something. I mean, I tried to sit up with another girl at school. I mean,
oh no, tell her. Come on,
I'm
man.
not going to tell the story. I won't tell the story.
Oh.
But I tried to sit up with another girl at school, and I, you know, over the years, I guess. Oh, actually, what it was, Ian, you came to college. We went to college in the same city. And all through high school, we were friends, and that was it. But he came to college, and he would come over to my house to eat because he was too lazy to cook. And so, I mean, I guess it's kind of how it started. But I would definitely have to say it's more of a growing. I'm kind of the opposite. Where I started liking him was, I didn't like him at first, and over time, as I knew him as a person, then I liked him more. But I did not have like an instant attraction. There was nothing like that. It was years later. And then people would say I like him. I'd be like, oh heck no, that's just not my type. He's just, you know. But yeah, it's grown over time. So yeah, he's my favorite person in the world now, and I wouldn't change that for anything.
Ian, how did you deal with being placed in that friend zone initially? Like I would have quit.
Right.
I didn't even know I was in the friend zone when I first started. I really had no idea what was going on when I first started. So it was more of a friendship thing, and I didn't mind being in that friendship zone for a while because I didn't even know what I wanted. So we just kind of let it go the way it went until, you know, things progressed. But I really didn't mind being in the friendship zone for a while until I really started liking her. And, you know, then things take off from there. But in the beginning, it was friendship zone, and I accepted that. You know, it was fine. And but like she said, it's been a growing relationship for us over the years, and I like you guys, I have been more attracted to her as we've gotten older in the relationship. So it's the thing that grows over time, it grows, and it does slowly get better, but it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah, I think for us, friendship was the key. I mean, I tell people when they talk about dating, I said, try to before you jump into anything else with people, just get to know them. And I think that's like the most solid foundation that you can have, because all the other stuff gets in the way if you start off doing a lot of other things too soon. And if you have the foundation, your friendship is the foundation, I think it helps to grow your relationship more solid over time.
Ian just tried that cooking you made, and he's like, "Oh, this is the one." He said, "Oh,
that's
I
true.
can't let this one go." That's what it was.
That is true.
Awesome. I want to go here. We talk about that growing process, and then Ian, Jorge, then Peter. Should we expect disappointment in this process? And the reason why, I this summer, 2020 has been a year of events. Let's say this has probably been the most suspenseful, and that's the most politically correct word I can think of, right? When it comes to just life. So earlier in the summer, Will and Jada talked about their marriage, and they talked about this disruption that happened, right? And Jada labeled it an entanglement, right? And it kind of caught fire. It kind of came like the catchphrase of the month. But I looked at it objectively. I'm not Will and Jada. I don't judge their marriage. I don't judge their relationship. I don't know what it's like to be the most famous actor in the world. But I think they hit on the fact that in order to continue something, you have to continue it with all of its inclusivity and whatever that means, right? So dealing with that on a very human level, should we expect disappointment, or a better word, should we expect disruption? And I'll start with you, Ian and Natalie, Jorge, and then Jorge and Alexa, and then Peter.
I would say most definitely. At some point, it has to happen. It has to come. Just depends on when. The question is not if, it's when. That's how I kind of see it.
Yeah, the disruption is part of the process, because to go into a relationship and believe that there's not going to be anything that's going to happen between the two of you is unrealistic. There's too many things that are out of our control, and there's a lot of things that are within our control, but what it all comes down to is choices at times. And I found out over the years that disruption sometimes makes the relationship stronger. It's one of those things that if you never get disruption, you never know how to handle it and what you guys are made of in the relationship. I mean, all of you can probably look back at your relationship and realize there's been some tough times that you've dealt with. I mean, real tough times, almost dark times, but you come out the other side, and and you're still growing and learning together. And I think that's the most important thing is, as couples, is that you learn together and you learn how to be in a relationship and how to, look to God to help you. And I think that's the best we can do. Use disruptions to make our relationships better.
Awesome. Jorge and Alexa, this idea of disruption, I think, is a very mature topic. It's not like we look to mess up, right? But I think you have to come into anything with the reality is that you're married to a human being. Human beings can be human, and they will show you their humanity, right? Talk to us about that disruption for you guys. And you don't have to go into details, but has there been an acceptance of this truth?
I think it has in our relationship. I know at first, for the most part, we would like to just think about ourselves. Like, you did this to me, you did this to me, you did this to me. It's not. We never really looked at it as, well, okay, so what can we do to fix it? What can I do to make that I didn't mean to hurt you. What I did was wrong, and it's like I said it before, like disruptions can come as surprises. And I say, like, a lot of people, oh, I love surprises. And no, you love surprises that you want. You don't like the surprises that you don't want. You don't like, oh, you could get a flat tire, that's a surprise. Just random stuff that happens. But I think disruption does help build, especially us now. We would go to a lot of marriage conferences. We encourage that a lot, and we would go and they would talk a lot about that. Just communication.
I think communication was one of the main things in the beginning of our marriage that we did not have. And that's why we kept on falling and falling and falling. And now we learned it's not how we fall, it's how we're going to get back up together, not just myself or himself. And, you know, and we learned without God, we're not going to fix each other. We're going to be broken pieces trying to be glued together. So it was really hard to understand that, but it's not how we fall, but it's how we're going to get back up together. And it's not easy. You know, there's steps that we have to, you know, get back up. But I mean, like Ian said, it's what helps us grow. That's how we grow within one another.
Awesome. Peter, I'm about to make a confessional. Like I said, I don't ever brag about being the greatest husband. I'm the most improved, right? Like there was a maturation.
And also, I'm not a priest. Ian is the MDiv guy. So,
my first year of marriage, or our first 2-3 years of marriage, was harder than it should have been, primarily because of me, right? It wasn't like I was out there just wilding, but you know, I was selfish, right? I felt like, you know, I'm steering, you know, I'm driving this car, I'm steering this ship, you know, if you can just kind of just, you know, fall in line, I can take care of it from here. And I really wasn't communicating. I really wasn't listening. And then I felt like, you know, like I was growing at a faster pace, right? Like ignorantly felt that way, right? And I think it kind of went to my head, you know, in that span, you know, I completed graduate school, you know, I got the job that I wanted, you know, and I was braggadocious about it. I'm like, you know, I'm the man. Like it was puffing my mind up to the point, you know, and I had to really reel it back because I was becoming something that I didn't recognize, right? So, you know, thankfully I didn't jump off the deep end, but I can't say that it didn't come to my mind. I can't say that I didn't entertain it. I can't say that given the opportunity, I might not even thought twice about it. But this understanding of disruption, when you're counseling couples, should you tell them to have a realistic approach on the reality that this not only can happen, it will happen in some form?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, definitely disruption. I think everybody would say we should expect disruption, but I think very few people are ready for it. Like kids, for example, can often bring an insurmountable amount of disruption to the marriage because you're not having sex anymore. You don't feel as pursued by your partner. You're like, and if it's a woman, if she has postpartum, usually that comes because she has a significant amount of anxiety, like she's not as good of a mom. Like, why am I not having as much love toward this kid? I thought I was going to have more. I see that a lot. It's like, where's that all about? So disruptions that I've seen just as a clinician, it's like, they're just like, they came and I had no idea that was even supposed to come here. It's like, we really can't predict. I wish I can predict what's going to come. And sometimes like the most beautiful gift, for example, children can often like undo a marriage if I'm not careful, but very few people are even aware of that. It feels weird even saying it because you almost feel like you're a bad parent if you say something like that. It's terrible. But at the same time, it's just true. If I'm not, you know, I mean, it could be mothers-in-laws. I live in up here in Massachusetts. There's a place it's called Gloucester. We say Gloucester. I want to say an F word before that, excuse me, but you know, everybody talks like that up here. But I mean, you know, it's just like, I have a funny story about that, by the way, but but Gloucester is like, they're all fishermen.
Yeah.
And they're like all on top of one another. It's the oldest seaport in the United States of America from 1640. And so these are people that have been here for like 300 years. And so you have grandma and you have the parent and then you have and then you have them and then you have like the children at the very bottom. You know, they're like an Italian, Portuguese kind of families. Mm-hmm. And they're really, really uncomfortable with change. And so anyway, I bring all this in because it's like they weren't expecting like my mother-in-law or my dad to have such a problem when I bring children in the relationship. And now he or she really, really wants to tell me how to raise kids. I have no idea about that. So yes, disruption comes, but all I would say is like, you don't really always know how to predict it very well. And just to that I love what, you know, Ian, what you're saying earlier, just like it should be a part to bring us together. I think there's something about Walt Disney that really ruined marriages, because it's like people really think that I need to, quote, find the one.
Right.
Well, what is that supposed to mean? You know, what is the one? Like, you complete me, Jerry Maguire?
Right.
It just doesn't, you know, I mean, it just doesn't exist. And that's okay, actually okay, because I think we in American church, especially, it's like we're uncomfortable with failure. I've just found that I don't find from other cultures. It's like we're really uncomfortable that this person has brought vulnerability in my relationship. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, why don't you just grab hold on it? It's going to happen. She's not going to always want to do this, or he's not going to always want to do that. But, you know, so I try to help my clients like accept that failure is not a threat to them as people or to their relationship, and if they can like accept that, then whatever comes, however it looks, I feel like they're better prepared. Great question though. Yeah. Just really got me thinking how to answer that. It's very, you could talk about it for like hours. So yeah.
Okay, Pastor Williams, First Lady Williams, I think Peter hit on something, and the Disney notion of the one is preached in church, right? Like, I had a conversation with a pastor who should not be named, but I'll text you his name afterward, and he totally argued me down that this idea of the one is true. And I always said the problem with the one theory is I don't believe that love is not magical. That's not what I'm arguing. My argument is that if you marry the one, whoever that person is, and let's say, God forbid, you know, they die randomly or they get hit by a drunk driver, whatever happens, right? And they're deceased. Are they still the one? Can you remarry, or is the next one the one plus one? You know, like, I don't know at what point does the one phase out or phase in. So we're, you know, you're a pastor. We're preach so heavily on coming against failure, right? Like, failure is the sin, not the sin itself, but the failure is the sin, right? It's the problem. And King David is brought up, and the story of Bathsheba and Uriah is like heavily entrenched, right? You just get this powerful man has his way with this woman. We don't know if it's consensual or not. You know, like, this is just a problematic story, and all of a sudden you just get failure on top of failure. And for us, it's like, don't fail, right? That constant don't fail. But it's like, how do you not and be human, right? So you're up, you're counseling, and, you know, you're dealing with, or you have a married couple that come to you and they're seeking counsel, and they say, look, we're struggling. How do we deal with disruption? How do we deal with this? What advice do you give them?
I have to concur with you and everyone. First is that, as far as the church don't really prepare us, in my opinion. It's because we're told that we have this happily ever after thing that they give us. But biblically, we really missed something in Genesis, is that Adam and Eve had beef already. And it was just them. It was a distraction. It lets us know that marriage can have trouble. Matter of fact, Jesus' first miracle was at a wedding. I believe he knew that every marriage need a miracle. So I believe that, first of all, we're human beings, right? We're human beings. And for me, I have to admit, as a husband, I probably didn't start getting better until I became a pastor, because I was like, you know, I'm reading books, trying to figure out, you know, how to counsel people. And I'm counseling people really, really well. And then I'm realizing, well, I'm not doing that. I'm really giving out some awesome advice, but I don't even do that, right? So I don't even do that. And one thing that I do, and my wife, she doesn't like it, but if someone comes to us to counsel them and they're being engaged, the first thing I try to do is break them up. My wife don't like it, but if I feel like I can break you up in 5 minutes, then maybe y'all should reconsider doing what you're getting ready to do. And she will tell you, sometimes I have been successful. So my outlook on marriage is to the point, if you're not ready to compromise from yourself and your thoughts, when you actually know you're right, then this might not be for you.
First Lady Williams, anything to add to that?
I'll just add that there are going to be bumps in the road. It's not going to be peaches and cream all the time. As similar life styles that we had, being pastors' children, being in the church, we were raised still differently. And when you are raised differently, and then you try to become one, there's going to be some bumps in the road. As simple as my family are loud talkers. His family speaks very softly. So when I'm talking, he thought I was yelling at him.
Who yelled at me, woman?
And so if you come in my house, we're all yelling. You come to a family gathering, we yelling, we're talking to each other because that's how we speak. And then I'm at his house, like, can y'all speak up a little bit? So when you start to intertwine those things and try to take from your family and his family and try to blend, take a little bit from each and blend it together, it's going to be some bumps in the road. But it's not who's right, it's what's right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so what's right is, of course, biblically, the word of God. What's right is what's right for the marriage. What's going to make the marriage fit and adapt to each other. So I think what the church fails at is that we are not transparent. We're not real. We want to make people think that every day is a great day. Mm-hmm. And every day, you know, I love my husband every day, but I don't like him every day. And that's the reality. And so the church wants to make you feel that way, that we're just not as transparent. So bumps in the road, there are going to be some bumps in the road. But how you deal with those bumps in the road is what makes your marriage work. Don't fall in the bump. Go over the bump and keep pushing forward.
All right. So don't fall in the bump. Keep pushing forward. Let's deal with that issue of reconciliation, right? So not staying at the bump, getting over the speed hump. I watched a very interesting interview today with Tamron Hall interviewing former Florida governor, real candidate, Andrew Gillum, right? He was the mayor of Tallahassee. He was a rising star within the Democratic Party. I actually had high hopes for Andrew Gillum as far as his political career. And he was just very, very transparent. And his wife was with him. And I could only imagine being next to somebody going through this kind of confessional. And it was really a transparent conversation. And it was on basically, this is, you know, who I am and trying to move forward. How do you deal with reconciliation, right? Like, how do you deal with that bombshell? Whatever it is, if somebody admits or hits this wall and it seems like everything is on fire and now you're trying to get people to move forward, right? What does moving forward look like from just any aspect? I'll start with you, Pastor Williams, and I want to hear Peter, you, and then Ian and Natalie, you guys, and then Jorge and Alexis. How do you move forward once you come to this newfound truth?
Understanding first that it's going to take time. 2, are you willing to fight for the marriage more than you're willing to fight? 3, are you willing to evolve? It's because what happens is when you have to, well, my wife we call make up. It's down to make up, right? Y'all know what that means. But you have to be able to evolve where you are not the same person that made the mistake. And that has to be conveyed not only through words, but through action and through time, in my opinion.
I agree with him.
What? Did y'all hear that? What is a miracle?
It's a miracle. Lord.
Yeah.
Peter, how do you move forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I am a Christian. And before I got my MFT, actually, I did get a MDiv and decided to become a counselor. So, but I say all that because I probably 70% of my clients are not Christians.
Yeah.
Only about 20% are. So it's interesting. So I follow the John Gottman technique. I really like him. He's this Jewish guy that basically has only watched couples for like 60 years. And so a lot of his opinions are not necessarily his own, like just personal opinion, but it's more like, this is why marriages work. And this is why marriages fail, that he has just seen. So that's what I like about him. And, you know, on this issue, I do follow him that he says that in order to reconcile whatever it is, you have to attune, you have to, atone. In other words, atoning is really, so when I'm talking to even non-Christian clients, you know, you have to really confess that what you did was wrong. And when you put a big but in there, you're not atoning. You're blaming him or her for the problem. And I've noticed that a lot of people want to rush the atone part, and they want to get to attunement, or they want to talk about the complications of the relationship, or they want to talk about, like, you know, how to, you know, do budget issues, or maybe, you know, and they're just not ready for that. And the number one reason why people even divorce actually has nothing to do with how much they fight, has nothing to do with personality differences, has nothing to do with she's an extrovert, he's an introvert. It has to do with contempt. I mean, that's the number one. When a couple comes in and I could see that he has contempt, I know that they're pretty close to divorce, because contempt is a really interesting emotion, because it's the point where we feel disgust. And that's not a good place to be, because it's one thing to be really angry at your partner. It's like, you drive me up the wall, and you even yell, whatever, you know, but when she's at the point where she has that contempt, ooh, yeah, that's not a good point. That's not a good place. I would so much rather her be yelling at him, you know, not that I do ask that, you know, to bring it down. That's not helpful, but I mean, and I think it often rises when we rush past the atonement part. And atonement is the most difficult and yet the most freeing thing you can do. And I've had to do this as a husband, and I've also helped clients do it. It's when I stop blaming and I just take full responsibility for what I've done and how I've hurt my partner. And there's no but, there's no if, it's no like, well, this is what you did. There's none of that. There's just like, this is me. This is how I failed you. And it's so freeing when you can do that with your partner, because she knows it, or he knows it. It's like they just heal immediately. It's like years of bitterness are just like gone within like seconds, because it's a real moment that you can't force. It's like when the prodigal son, he's like, why am I eating pig food? It's like, oh my gosh. And I think only God really does it, even amongst I believe that. I believe God does it even amongst people who don't believe. He just kind of, like, I see that especially with guys who struggle with addiction. They just stop. It's like, no, I got to get help. And but it's so freeing. It's so beautiful. And then they're ready to attune. And then they're ready to like talk about some other issues. So I would just say, don't rush that part as much as you want to. And I get the urge to want to rush the atonement part, but just, you know, slow down and just, it's okay to sit with your partner and how you've hurt him or her. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Jorge and Alexa, have you ever had to go through some type of atonement process, or have you ever found yourself on the possibility of being contempt? I think, and I keep hearing my wife say, I think what did it for me is when I realized like I had to make some changes, is when we got to a point where we were just cool. Like when the argument stops, it is like, you know, like that's a very dangerous point, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you start evolving from, you know, partner to roommate, like that's a very dangerous process, right?
Yeah.
So talk to us about that for you guys.
I know for us, I like to use metaphors for some reason, but I know y'all were talking about bumps on the road. So I realized that I need to change the tires on my car, you know, get stronger tires, meaning I have to figure out, we argue different. I like to solve it right now. Like we're fighting, okay, let's fix it now. You know, let's fix it. Let's be about our day. I like to go a whole week without talking to me.
That's because he needs to learn what he did was wrong. So
Yeah.
I'm like, no, maybe like 3-4 days.
Yeah, but I learned to pick my battles. You know, there's sometimes we would argue for no reason. I've had pizza thrown at me. You know, I've had just random stuff thrown at me. I've had a plate of food in my hand, flat out, you know, like ready to eat my sandwich, and it's just
This is the old me. Now,
Yeah.
now it's perfect.
Yeah.
We're going to church.
Is that why
was
you're
the
changed
old
shirts?
me.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Right.
the old me.
I've thrown water, so you're not the only one out there.
Oh,
So.
right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the hardest thing is talking, communicating, what
Mhm.
what we keep on talking about. And we have to really, really, not be stubborn, hard-headed, and really, okay, we're going to sit down and talk about it. Which, when we talk about it, we do tend to argue again, but we're like, okay, look, this is what I did, and I'm sorry for doing X, Y, Z.
Mhm.
You made me feel this type of way when you did this. So, I mean, it's hard. It's very, very hard, but it's
Yeah.
doable.
Most of the time, it's me apologizing.
No,
of
it's
course.
not. No, it's not. But
Yeah.
no, it's hard. But
Yeah. I think we just have to learn how we communicate.
mhm.
You know, because we communicate differently.
Mm.
You know, I'm more let's fix it. She's more let me think about it. Type. Let me think about it, ponder on my thoughts, and then we could go.
And another thing is, when I get mad, I don't want to speak out of anger. I don't want to speak out of emotion. So if I talk right then and there, I don't want to say something I'm going to regret. So I need to kind of like, all right, Alexa, chill out first. Let me get it together first, and then let's
Get some
communicate.
Chick-fil-A. You know, eat something. So I've learned that's a good way to reconnect. I'll leave the house and I'll bring her back some food. Okay, let's go. So,
That's
so,
good.
so
That's good.
we can't argue on Sundays.
They're not open.
Yeah, all right. This is a good rule to have. Ian and Natalie, talk to us about that that atonement process, not rushing it. Sometimes we're quick to fix, but I always say that you have to allow things to kind of run their course, right? Like if you try to save something too quick, you can slip and fall and drown as well. Talk to us about that for you guys. What has that been like for you?
I'm quick to want to resolve the argument, and Ian's quick to want to hold. He wants to hold on to it for who knows how long. But to get kind of real, like a few years back, we almost split up. We split up for like 2 weeks, but we sold our house, and at that time, we decided to go our separate ways, and he could figure out what he wanted to do. I could figure out what I wanted to do. Peter, you mentioned about kids. Our relationship was perfect until we had kids. Once we had kids, everything broke loose. And we've had to go to counseling several times, and now this was what now? So 12 years in is when everything hit the fan, as people say, and we decided to split up. I didn't like him. He didn't like me. We just had enough of each other. And so I let him go. Like, you go figure out whatever it is you want to do. I didn't call him. I didn't talk to him. He would call for the kids and stuff. And then he decided that he didn't want to have a broken home because he came from a broken home. His parents divorced at a young age. And so we tried again. And in that trying, we didn't like each other. Even when we tried to start over, we didn't, we had to it was like a force thing. I had to force myself to hug him. I had to force myself to kiss him because I didn't like him, but we were still married. And I never thought we'd ever get to a point like that in our relationship because we've always been pretty strong, but life happens, things happen. So I don't know about the atonement. I'm quick to, I guess, want to atone and make amends and move on, but I don't know, Ian.
I think she's
about that.
No, I think she's right, but I think a lot of that had to do with me. Actually, in any relationship, it always takes one person to make a choice if they want to stay or not in the relationship. So during that 2 weeks off, I made an atonement and I decided that I wanted things to work. And I think that's what it comes down to in any relationship. Somebody has to want to make it work, and then eventually both partners have to want to make it work in order to come together. And I decided then that I really didn't want to keep acting this way and treating her this way because it wasn't right. It wasn't right for me. It wasn't right for her. And I made a choice, and I said, you know what? I have to make a choice, and I can't be the same person that I am now. I have to try to do things better to make the relationship work for both of us. Because I was a very selfish person. I still am to a point, but I'm getting slightly better over the years. And I'm trying to really work on it. I'm really working on it, but it's a daily choice to try to do things to help somebody else. You have to really sacrifice your own feelings and what you want in life. Anything you want in life now, I think the pastor said it earlier, you got to put those on hold a little bit and help the other person out and look out for their well-being. That's how relationships work, is when you start looking out for the other person really over yours, and then come together as one. And that's when things really start to work. But it's a choice. It's a real conscious choice that you want it to work. Until you come to that choice, and I think a lot of people never give it enough time. They don't give the relationship time to come to a point where they said, okay, I want this to work. A lot of them usually just walk and quit and leave before they have a chance.
Have that feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like if people worry about their feelings.
So,
I don't feel something for this person, but when you're married, it's not about always feeling. You may not always feel for them, but you have to push past those feelings and try to, like I had to get back to liking him, or even wanting him to hug me or touch me. I didn't want nothing to do with him at all. And I had to make myself do that. And then I fell back in love and I remembered all those feelings. But at first it was not something that came natural after, our whole blow up and everything. So
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. I think for me, for us, I think my choice was after I got into my 30s. I think after because now I'm 31, right? And I think I had to realize like I'm not 18 anymore, and kind of this ego that I had built up, right? Like I couldn't feed it anymore, right? Like I realized that age was catching me, and I had to deal with what that meant, transitioning. And sometimes I think for us and for men, we try to live in the past and not realize that it is what it is, right? Pardon the pun, right? Like I had to realize like I don't have hair anymore, like like I have, when I eat pizza, the calories actually stay on me, like it was a hard deal, because in the past it was like you come in with the mindset like I can get another one, right? Or I can do this again, right? And you start going through your phone and and you start kind of planning your terrible strategies, but I had to realize like I woke up one day and I realized I was no longer young. And that was the hardest thing to deal with for me, because if you've made sports teams before and I'm a better hooper than Naaman will ever be, like if you got, you work out and you like what you've become and you like what you're able to do, and all of a sudden you can't do it anymore. That was a hard phenomenon for me to deal with. I see Ian jumping back on. Last question, I'm gonna let you guys go. I appreciate you guys so hard, but I do want to throw this. I always try to throw a little curveball question, but it's simple. You won't drown on this. Is there a point of no return that your spouse can do that is like, no, right? Like sometimes, I always say, we rely so much on second, and I believe second, third, fourth, fifth chances. I believe in grace and mercy. I totally believe in forgiveness, but I also think there is a point of no return, right? And is that true for relationships? I'll start with you, Jorge and Alexa, and then Peter, then Ian, Natalie, then Pastor Williams and First Lady Williams.
I want to say, you know what? That's a really tough one. It's like you don't know what to say unless you go through it.
Right.
So I would say, I think we've given each other chances. Like, all right, I'm going to give the marriage another chance. I'm going to give it another chance. But it's hard because when you're angry, you're upset, and everything, your first thing to do is, all right, I'm leaving, or, I'm going. But, here we are, we're giving a chance and chance. I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's very hard. So I want to say right now, let's say if Jorge cheats on me, it's done, it's over. But when that day comes, am I going to have mercy and forgive him? Be like, you know what? Let's fix it. Let's pray together. Let's work it out. It was a mistake, because we're all, we all make mistakes. No sin is bigger than the other. Right. So I strongly believe we're in it to win it, as I say. But like I said, maybe there is going to be a time where I'm like, all right, no, it's time for us to go. But
for me, a couple years ago, I told Alexa I made a decision to love her unconditionally, and I say, like, an example, we have our kids, and most parents, there's nothing your kid could do that'll make you stop loving them. It doesn't matter what they do. They could do the most horrible crime in the world. You as a parent, you're still gonna have that love for your kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I told Alexa a couple of years ago that I'm gonna love her unconditionally. You would ask me, you know, before that, then any little thing, you know, we would argue for the dumbest thing, and you know, there was a time that I left the house for 2 days, you know, to kind of try and prove her a point, you know. But like I said, 2 years ago, I decided to love her unconditionally. So in my head, if I love her unconditionally, then I don't think she's gonna do anything to hurt me. I wouldn't have that, I don't have that in the back of my head. Oh, is she talking to someone, or is she, you know, looking something? Is she doing something she's not supposed to do? Just things like that.
Awesome, that's good. Peter, is there a point of no return?
Oh yeah, that is a curveball. It's like I wasn't prepared.
It is, yeah.
No. Yeah, I suppose I just have to lean on what I've seen, if that's okay. Like kind of going back what I was saying, like I could, you know, when the couple is coming in and they have had years of picking up each other's what I call bids for connection. What is a bid for connection? It could be like, hey, sweetie, I just got a text from my mom, to, hey, I just got a book. You can see I like books. So, hey, you know, it could just be a teeny tiny thing. And what a healthy couple will turn toward their partner's bids like a significant amount of time. And it's not like, hey, we need to have a serious conversation. It's like these teeny tiny bids throughout the day and the couple's picking up, they're turning toward. The unhealthy couples, though, they either turn against them. They're like, hey, you know, leave me alone, go away. Or they turn away from them. They're like, they're on their phone. You know, we asked Gottman, we asked him, it's like, why do marriages fail? And he says, you know, at the end of the day, he says to her, when she comes to him, I'm here for you, baby. The world stops. I'm here to listen. And in a bad marriage, when she comes to him or he comes to her, he says to her, go away. And when you're in a better place, you come back. And, you know, think of it like a piggy bank. You know, think of the pandemic, for example, like who made it through the pandemic? Well, yeah, easy if you invested. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you didn't make it. Like you're barely going by. But if you invested, you're doing okay, hopefully. You know, you're still getting by. Marriage is the same way. If you bids for connection is like the long-term investment. But if you're living paycheck to paycheck, and then like an affair happens, you're not going to make it. But if you are investing in your marriage, because that's the thing, affairs, they don't ruin the marriages that come in. I've seen crazy stuff that I don't even want to go into. It's like, it would make this whole podcast like rated R, you know what I mean? It's just like, and yet they made it. Like they made it because there was some type of investment in their marriage. And they went through, but the ones that didn't make it through, they were literally on the surface. They actually didn't argue that much. They were good parents. They were getting by, and it totally surprised their church. It surprised their community that they're right now they're divorcing. And it's because they were like literally going from like one check to another check to another check. And then something hit the fan and they just weren't ready. And I like what you're saying, Alexa. I mean, yeah, because you don't know what's going to be. But if you are investing in the marriage, I think you can get through anything personally. I mean, I think there are exceptions.
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm thinking of some things, but so, yeah. But no, that's a great question. It's great. Yeah, it's you threw me a curveball, but I hopefully answered it best I could.
That was good. Ian and Natalie, is there a point of no return?
In my 20s, I would say there was. I told Ian before we got married, if you cheat on me, I will take everything that you own and you will live in a car. And I said, if you think you want to cheat, just let me know ahead of time so I can go about my business. And so at that point, back then in my 20s when we got married, yes. Now I would say I wouldn't, I don't hold the same thoughts that I did before. So it basically would be a case by case situation. But but back then though, with him, I could see him sitting up in his car with nothing, living in that car because I told him I will take everything you own if I find out you cheat on me. Anything else, we can talk about it.
And
but
she would too.
If you just cheat on me, I'll take it at all. And I told him I meant it 100%. So, but now fast forward 17 years, that would be a case by case basis. So everything would be a case by case. I don't know.
Awesome. Pastor Williams, First Lady Williams. Is there a point of no return? Let's say First Lady Williams, you come home, Pastor Williams, and turn in. I'm not gonna name any names because I don't want any smoke. But let's say he just got wild out there, right? Is there a point of no return?
If he didn't got wild, he could stay wild out there. I like to think that I would like to extend the same grace and mercy that God extends to us. And I agree with the young lady that said, you really don't know how you would approach something until you are actually in it. So you will think, if you go through his teacher, you go through fire drills, you go through tornado drills, you know what to do in case of emergency. But sometimes when you hit with that emergency, you forget that when there's a tornado, put your hands over your head. You forget the first thing you do, you panic, you run. So you don't know what you would do in a given situation. You want to say what I could do, but you really don't know. I would like to think that I would extend grace and mercy.
Awesome. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I appreciate all my guests. As always, we'll still our sign off where they can connect with you. Pastor Williams, First Lady Williams, what are you doing? Where can the people connect with you?
We pastor the church, Bread of Life, the church that takes the limits off. You can look us up on Facebook, or you can catch me personally on NamanWilliamsMinistries.com.
Awesome. Natalie and Ian, where can they connect with you? What are you guys doing?
Or we got our Family Mess, the Family Mess podcast on Facebook, and the Family Mess on Instagram and Twitter. Did I get that right, Ian? If he's hearing,
yeah, yes, you got it right.
Yes, so hit us up there.
Nice.
Awesome, Peter. Where can they connect with you? What are you doing?
Yeah, the podcast I'm part of is called Sound Engagement, and we just have guests on that just take interesting views and just talk to them. If anybody's in the Massachusetts area, please give us a call at Anderson Family Therapy. We'd love to connect you. I'm actually wanting to do possibly another podcast on just marriage advice, honestly, and I'll let you know when that comes on. I love, doing what I do. So yeah, but that's really the two places.
Awesome. Hey, look, if you want to have me on, I don't have any advice to give to your audience, but
sure, I'll have to talk to you. No, yeah, please. Yeah. We love different perspectives, and yeah, we just have fun. It's great. Yeah. Cool. I'll have to email you personally. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Jorge and Alexa, what are you guys doing? Where can the people connect with you?
We are The Kiddos Are Sleeping. We're a podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. And we also have a Facebook and Instagram, The Kiddos Are Sleeping, to connect and
the same email, kiddosaresleeping@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah.
Awesome. I will
What is that about? I'm just curious. Would you say is kettles?
Well, yeah, the kiddos, like kids.
Oh, kiddos. Okay.
Yeah, we can't connect until the kiddos are sleeping. So that's our time.
Funny.
And we talk about everything.
Yeah, everything and anything. So the kiddos.
Natalie and Ian, what's the name of your what kind of work do y'all? Sorry, I'm doing. Is this after? Should you say break? Sorry about that.
I'll
the therapist part of me is already like coming out. I'm like,
you're good. You're good. I'll have their social hyperlinks post records cut. I appreciate you guys again. Look, tomorrow's episode, I'm doing an episode on Latinx, Hispanic Heritage Month. I have some amazing guests tomorrow. Leaders. One of our leaders is the director actually of Boy Scouts for America. She's over the fundraising. Then I have another one who's a corporate realtor. She is amazing. I have some just amazing guests coming through. I also have, I believe, Name You coming back on for another one. I have Fall and Fitness. That'll be next Monday. But it's going to be an amazing time. I want to thank my guests again. I want to thank everybody, Peter, First Lady, and Pastor Williams, Natalie, and Ian, and Jorge, and Alexa. Connect with these individuals. They do amazing work, amazing gifts to humanity. I'll have their contact information in the Post Director's Cup, but I appreciate it, guys. Until next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome.